Hi and welcome to the shop again. Today I'm going to talk about some new planes that I got and what I do first when I get something in. This part you could call typing, and what it is trying to figure out where in the sequence of events of Stanley's manufacturing these planes lie, dating them and finding out what modifications have been done to them over the years as they were developed and created by Stanley. Who developed them, what their history is, and what the purpose is. So we're going to go through some of these planes, and I have some other ones laid out here for you. We have a number 9 3/4 block plane with a squirrel tail. We have a Bedrock number 603, a little smaller than the 4, with the flat sides. We have a number 45. We have a number 6 and a number 4. The 6 and the 4 are both Wartime planes, and I know that because of the adjustment knob. So I'm able to identify that approximate year fairly quickly. But in all these others, there are little variances in them that'll change what year they were manufactured. And for that, I use a guide to the timeline found in this John Walters book, Antique and Collectible Stanley Tools, Guide to Identity and Value. I bought this from John Walters when he was selling these out of the trunk of his car, I don't know how many years ago. Let's see, 1996 was the second edition. So a while back. These are harder and harder to find, and they're very expensive. He's supposed to come out with a new book soon, and everybody's waiting and hopeful that it comes out. At any rate, we're going to come in for some close-ups and look at these planes, but I wanted you to know some of the tools. One of them is the guidebook. Another one is a good magnifying glass, particularly if you're getting on in years like myself, and it's sometimes hard to see little logos and imperfections and other things like that. 2 good screwdrivers, a medium size and a larger one, because you do not want to use a small screwdriver on a larger screw and mess up the slot. So you want to use the proper size screwdriver for every screw that you loosen. And I keep just a little stick pad basically, and a pencil, and I write down notes on each of the planes as I come to something pertinent to it, or some imperfection or something strange. I'll write that down and then I'll put it next to each plane so that I don't have to keep going back to the book each time. There's some things about these planes that need cleaning, but I always try to type and age and get as much information about them before I clean them, because if the plane is a particularly important one, like this, what I believe is this 9 3/4 Type 1 Stanley or Bailey block plane, I don't want to mess it up by over cleaning it, because that's what it'll do. It'll lose its value, and it'll also lose a lot of its beauty if I over clean it. So we're going to cut away here and go to some close-ups of these planes, and I'll describe some of the issues and the points about them. Glad to have you here. So here is a number 6 that I've laid out and I've taken apart, and the reason for that is before you can really identify the age of a lot of these, you have to really examine all the different parts. Number 1, to see if they're all original parts, or maybe some have been replaced, or that there's little significant parts about the plane that differs from the guides on typing it. But here is a number 4, and I believe both of these are wartime period, but we'll go through that in a moment. Here are 3 more planes that we want to identify, and we want to make sure are correct. This is a 9 3/4 Stanley, and judging from the look of it, it appears to be a Type 1, but we'll verify that in a moment. And again, I've taken it apart, but not done any cleaning on it yet. Here, obviously due to the flat sides, is a Bedrock plane with a rosewood tote and a rosewood knob. Also have taken all this apart, and we're going to look in the guidebook to see if it's actually correct. some rust on those rods there. That'll come off really easily with a wire brush. We'll get into that in another video. This video is basically about taking tools that you just get in and first taking them apart, examining them, and typing them so you know exactly what it is that you're working with. So we're going to start with this Stanley here, which is a Bailey's Excelsior block plane, 9 3/4. In the book, it mentions that this didn't come out until 1872, even though the cutter itself has a patent date of 1858. So it says here, see if we can get this up here to where you can see it easily, is L. Bailey's patent, August 31, 1858. But again, it didn't show up into a catalog for sale until 1872, July 1st, 1872. The trademark on the blade is considered an A2. The first one was more straight across and different lettering, and in that book it will give you all the different ones. So that has to do with just this little trademark right here. So you can see the blade is in very nice shape, no major damage. And these little slits here, it says that they varied, I believe, from 10 to 13. We have 12 here, and they will fit into this nice little piece here. So let's put this down and let me pick up the plane and show you that. This is a little concentric guide with a twist here, and here's the concentric guide with a pin, and that goes in those little grooves. And when you turn it like that, you can see that's going to advance the blade or withdraw the blade. And it's interesting, in the casting, you see how large this is compared to this over here. That's important in order to get this part more centralized between the two sides of the plane, so that this point here is really working up and down and not pushing the blade side to side too much. The other really nice part about it is this little filed twist, and you can see these little marks here in it. I'm not sure if those are stress marks, there you go, or if they're actually filed to make it cleaner afterwards, after the twist was put into it. So in the book it describes these three lateral cross sections here and this center portion here that supports it. Everything about this one matches what's in the guidebook as a Type 1, including this little screw here, which I found interesting because they offered two options later, and one was a brass knob, but not on the first one. The sides are interesting because they, see if I can get some light on it, from down here they're thicker and they taper up. So you can actually feel it getting thinner, this sort of fat, and then thin and taper, which gives you a nice fine line along this edge here. And it's these little things that you want to pay attention to. And you can see that the squirrel tail is attached here with a screw in the back. And so this whole assemblage would come off, and it has a nice little barrel nut here that holds it on. This is rosewood. And then you go to the bottom. Let's take a look at the bottom. Here's your toe piece that's adjustable to tighten up your throat. There is a little bit of damage there, but for 1872 to 1920, that's very little damage. So I'm not going to worry about that. and I won't correct it. On some I have filed these to try to correct it, but I won't do that on this plane just because it's too important historically. Not that this is the only one available. You can probably find more, but it doesn't mean that each example of it isn't equally important. This will just get a minor cleaning, and it will not get refurbished to new. Now here is the lever cap, and the lever cap is beautiful. There's no chips along this edge here. Good to see. And here, this you see is a method of tightening that when it's thick here, it's tight because it's pushed down, and then you come along here and you see you build up to that tighter portion. And this relief here lessens as you go. And so that's the tightening mechanism to hold this against the blade. Again, very nice shape, a nice patina. I'll do a little cleaning, and that's it. Ah, look what we find here. An M. So, or it's two lines and a V in between, but this is most likely an owner's mark. It's not terrible, and I won't take it out because it's part of the history of the plane. He didn't do anything to this side. So that's what I mean by really looking at this stuff in detail so that you can catch any kind of imperfections on these. So here's my little notepad, and I wrote down L. Bailey's patent, August 31st, 1858, and that's what's on the blade. 9 3/4. It's a type 1. It's the first type. The trademark is an A2 on the blade. Now the A2 just refers to what John Walters called is his study number, but this has no value as far as Stanley or Bailey's numbering system, and it was first offered July 1st, 1872. So let's go on to another plane. This one's a real beauty, very little damage. That's how this lever works. You see how it moves the blade, and then the lever cap here, loose, and then tight. Well, I haven't tightened this down yet, so I have to give it a cleaning, and we'll get back to that. We'll set it aside. Let's talk about this Stanley number 603. It's a flat side, and you can see that because the sides are flat. The earlier ones had a round, just like the normal Bailey ones. The other thing that's different is the frog seating. The way this frog seats, you see it's all milled very flat here, which makes it easier to mill than some of the other ones with castings that have raised ribs and things. The Bedrocks were known for that, and this is now used on the Lee Nielsen's method for their frog seatments. But let's be specific to this one and take a look at some of the features that we have here. The lever cap has Stanley in a notched logo. That's referring to this rectangle that has these little notches in the corners. It's a rosewood front knob, very dark, very nice. The color is really beautiful. I put a little coating of wax on it, and that's why it's kind of dull, just to clean it up. Here you can see the tote also has some beautiful color, and when we buff out that wax, that's really going to come through and be very nice. The brass adjustment knob. Here are all the little tidbits for adjusting the frog. These two pieces seat themselves in here, going down, and they have a little hole right here, which takes these points here, and that's part of the adjustment forward and back on this. And then this little piece seats itself down around this like that. And that's how you control how far forward your frog is or back, by bringing this in and out. This piece remains steady, and this will move it. Okay, so we have the rear tote bolt is pretty rusty. I think you can see. A little wire brushing and that'll go away and that'll be fine. Need to loosen this up. This is still tight, which is not terrible, but we don't want it to remain attached to this. We want to be able to get that free and clean up this surface on here. The frog looks fine. On the frog, a thing to notice is that there is no patent marks here. That's been gone, and it just says Stanley here. Sometimes the Stanley is with the letters turned, so it's Stanley. And here they used to have 2 patent dates. But that's not for this plane. Now, here's something interesting, is that this pin is loose. You see here? And so we want to be a little cautious with that. We want to put it back in properly, and then we want to peen this other end so it can't slip out and cause any issues. So we want to be aware of that little issue. There's some grunge all along here, but I think that'll clean up with a little bit of a brushing or just even wiping with a rag. So nothing terrible there. On the sole itself, as I said before, it has number 603 Bedrock, and over here it has U.S. patent April 1910. So this gives us good hints. The Japanning is very nice, and I've sprayed that with a little bit of Aerocroil just to soften it up and to get this sort of stuff loose so I can go ahead and clean it. Sides look nice, a little staining, no big issue. This is probably in the original casting. That's not a damage point. And then here, there is a large coating here, but it's mostly surface, and that'll come right off with a little bit of superfine sandpaper and flattening anyway. So not too worried about that. The logo on the blade is Sweetheart logo, Stanley Sweetheart. And what's important in this is to note that that heart from the Sweetheart goes up. Let me see if I can get this to where you can see it. It goes up into the notched logo. You see the notched logo goes down into the heart, and they change that at different points. So we pay special attention to that in the guidebook to make sure that we're dating it properly according to that. Everything else looks nice and fine. Does need resharpening. It doesn't look terrible, but I think it could use some pointing up, cleaning of this. The chip breaker looks nice. Seats well on the front. So that's all good. So we've done a nice examination of this. Now we have to figure out the dating. So in the book, this is a funny one. It's a Stanley Bedrock, number 603, obviously, U.S. patent date, 1910, but April 19th, 1910. It's the flat side. It's got rosewood pieces here, and it says Type 7, but the thing that's odd is this adjustment wheel. You see the size of this adjustment wheel is small, and this went away when they went to Type 7. Type 6 had the small one. So we have to look at this in the period that they were being produced as an early one because they used up old stock. So this is most likely circa 1923, which was the earliest of this type. If this was a large one, then it might be 1924, 1925. But that tells us because that's on the plane. And there should be no reason for anyone to have ever replaced this. So let's go on to another plane. So here is a Bailey number 4. It says made in USA back here. And when you look in the guidebook, it specifies certain things of this period. I'm saying this is a type 17, but prior to 17, at a different type change, you see there's a little raised area here behind the numbers. This front toe has been thickened up and raised. So here is a Bailey number 4. It says made in USA back here. And when you look in the guidebook, it specifies certain things of this period. I'm saying this is a type 17, but prior to 17, at a different type change, you see there's a little raised area here behind the numbers. This front toe has been thickened up and raised. You can sort of see that circular part and right there. And then this is raised around where the knob will fit in, you see. So these are all correct for that period. And it specifies made in USA is added back here. In the larger number 6, there are some variances. And as I was explained by a real expert on it, that there was the type studies were done on the number 4, so that sort of explains where some things vary. The one thing that doesn't quite match is that this is a rosewood knob and a rosewood tote, and you can see the beautiful grain in that rosewood. So there's no doubt that this is a Dalbergia rosewood. And you can also tell on the bottom where there's no finish, so the raw wood. So this is rosewood, and they're saying that during the wartime production that they switched to some sort of a fruitwood knob and tote. And so in this case, again, and the expert explained to me, is that they sometimes used earlier parts rather than adding to them. This is correct for the period. It's already got the kidney shape here rather than the keyhole slot. And this is accurate for the Stanley number 4 from this period. Everything is actually fine for that type study. It's interesting that this portion here, you see, is japanned, and oftentimes that was taken off the japanning there. So it's kind of interesting that it's there, but it is correct and it is flat. And this is a major change here where they went to the single rib going up the center. The japanning on it is very nice and thick all the way around. It's going to clean up very nicely. It's a smooth bottom. Here's the sides. Doesn't look like anything has actually ever been done to it. It looks like it's in really nice shape. And the war planes, a real key to them, is this is much thicker than on the earlier ones and the ones that followed. So all of these are good keys to keep an eye out for. So everything here is accurate for the plane. Look at the japanning here is also very nice. It looks like somebody must have buffed it out, because I'm detecting even the japanning on this is very good. But it looks like somebody must have buffed this out, because I'm detecting a little bit of red rouge, jeweler's rouge, in here and in here. So I think this had been cleaned before. See, right along in there. I'll clean that off with a little WD-40. No patent marks here. None here. And Stanley written here. All accurate. So there's a couple of things that still confuse me. On this also, I see some red, hints of red here and here. And it looks to me like this one here had been dipped in vinegar or some sort of a process to remove rust. And you can see the damage that has done. particularly to this portion here. You can see how dull and gray the metal is. I never do that with a plane. And then it looks like somebody tried to buff it out and salvage it, but you can see that it's eaten into that metal. So it's not terribly important. Luckily, they did not dip the blade, but the chip breaker either is a replacement or somebody dipped it. It's too bad. This is all in very nice shape. The logo you see is Stanley with the notched squares and then just made in USA. And in the book, it tells you which logos are for which period. This is all proper. So the only other thing I want to talk about on this plane is that it talks about the adjustment knobs for the blade are supposed to either be made of steel or rubber, hard rubber. Now, this has this hard rubber outside, but this is not steel. I don't know if you can see the yellow there, but this is absolutely brass. And this is a question I have, because if they were trying to save all the brass for bullets for World War II, then they didn't save a lot, only the part that's covered by this hard rubber. So this is an anomaly that I'm still looking for an explanation from, and have put in some feelers out to different people. This is just a little bit of dirt that'll come off. But so there's an interesting point. Other than that, it's an accurate wartime production Bailey Stanley number 4. Now, there's some cleaning issues here. You see how rusty this is, but all of this will come off very easily, and we'll get to that later. So let's look at this number 6. You can see how thick this is here. I'll bring it up and show you. This is a number 6 Bailey, made in USA, smooth bottom. Sides look good. Sides look good. Looks like there might have been a little bit of rust right here years ago. Maybe this has been cleaned up. Sides are nice and thick. Definitely wartime. There looks like there's a C, little casting mark in there. And the Japanning's nice here, a little worn back here. You see? I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to clean that up. I'm not going to try to re-Japan it. It's got the correct frog seatment here, seat there. So let's put that down. Here's the frog. Japanning looks good in here. No patent date here, just Stanley, as it should be, proper to the study. It's always nice when you find the parts that are proper to the study. And this did not come out. It's tight, and I'm not going to worry about it. It won't hurt anything for it to stay there. I'll have to be a little more careful about brushing behind there. Japanning in here looks nice and clean. The 2 barrels are nice and clean. These are the hollow types. They used to be just solid down, and to save brass, it's a little more work, but they hollowed these out at some point, and it's in the book on when those things changed. I went ahead and I polished these a little bit, and I got the rust off of here so you could see what it looks like from the other ones that were really, really rusted up like this. And you see quickly it comes up very clean. Now, those pieces go back. It's got a tall rosewood again knob, and you can see that grain in there, absolutely rosewood. And you can see in here the unfinished part, absolutely rosewood, which does not fit that time period. So it may be that it was an earlier part in the war production, and they used the old ones before going to the newer. So this is definitely rosewood in here as well. Beautiful shape, no damage to it. And then the lever cap, again, kidney shape, proper. The notched logo, as they call it. And on the back here, you see there's a patent number, and there's a U. And it may be that that's what I'm seeing as a C in the casting mark in the base could be a U as well, something to look into, and a patent number. And I brought back the number 4 patent number, the Wartime, and you see it doesn't have the U there to match, but the numbers on the patent numbers do match from the number 4 to the number 6. It's always good to have different ones that you can actually compare the two to each other. This all functions very nicely, so that'll clean up well. Now, on this piece here, you remember I said that up here it says Bailey, and then behind the front knob it says Made in the USA. In the guidebook it says that type 16 they changed to putting the Made in the USA here, and here you can see it is behind. It is behind the frog, and in front of the rear tote, Made in USA. Now the explanation why they're different, and you see that this has the number here and the number 6 back there instead of here, is that the study was done based on the number 4 and not the number 6. Otherwise, that probably would have been noted. So it's not incorrect. It's just that this was really not used in the studies for as far as it being the number 6. So the blades, correct with the proper notching. This one has not been dipped, and you can see some minor discoloration. This will go away, and it's a little bit of a patina that you really don't want to get rid of totally, but you want to clean it up a little bit, or I do. And then here on the blade is a number 438 stamped into the blade. This could mean several things. It could mean that this was used in a factory, in a warehouse, in a school, or any place that kept track of their blades. And so this might not necessarily have been the blade that came with this plane, even though it's proper for it. But or it may have been, but it's numbered to maintain the number of blades that they had in that factory, warehouse, or school. So here are all the little parts that need to be cleaned up. And the only other anomaly about this one, again, is the rubber knob. Because it's not on steel, it is on brass. So, again, I don't know why that's brass rather than steel, or that it's not completely steel. But I don't see any reason for them to take the old brass knobs and then coat them in steel. And it's different because this is not sunken in, so this is a modified design. So who knows, maybe early, no idea. So that's the number 6. That's the 4-plane heavy casting, type 17, 1942 to 1945. Because of some of the rosewood totes and things, I would suggest that it's probably closer to 1942. Talk about this 45 here. This is a major change on this type, and there's a lot of differences that vary from the types before it. I'm considering this a type 7B, and it seems to fit all of the qualifications. So, number one, the rosewood ball that's on the fence now, you see there's no bolt up here anymore. And it now screws onto this metal post that's cast in the with the main casting here. And it's interesting because this is not threaded afterwards. It's actually in the casting, and you can see that how it's flat on this side and this side. So that's a major change that they went to that. And then in later models, they went back to the threaded piece that goes through the bolt. So that's a big key as to it being 7B. 7B is from 1896 to 1906. And there's early ones and later ones. And the funny thing about this one here is that on the center skate here, there's a B casting. And the B casting refers to the earlier version of this. But on the fence here, there is an S here. So this refers to a little later. So it might be a mixture of two pieces, one from the earlier 7B to the later 7B. Another interesting thing that I find on this that is similar to some of the Stanley block planes is this piece here, this adjustment screw for adjusting the blade in and out, has holes here, which is typical for the piece that tightens the cap iron on some of the block planes. But on the ones before this and after this, I don't see this wheel as this one is. In here, tight, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little B casting on that as well. So that's interesting. The number 45 here on the main body cast is a sign of the 7B. So there's all these little things that were different before and have changed. The other thing is the handle on the 7Bs are now held on by two rivets. This one here and this lower rivet here. So this is all of the signs on the main body that point out that this is a 7B. On the fence, that also is different. First of all, the distance from here to here has gotten shorter on this, and the design here has changed. Now it's just the 45 in an oval here, and this flat surface here acts as an alternative fence to using this side of the rosewood. Now on this plane, one of the things that I did notice is you see how worn the rosewood is here. Well, that's because the owner of it reversed it in order to achieve a new flat surface. And here are the original holes, how it was mounted on the plane originally, but somebody has reversed it around. I'm going to take it off and clean this off. It'll be a little thinner, but it won't have this scarring anymore. So I'm going to correct that little issue with it. The other change in the 7B is you notice the rods here that go through are straight, simple rods. And so what they did was, it used to be that these would screw into the main body of the plane on this side. And now they've switched it to a design where the rod goes all the way through. So that's a major change in the 45s of that year. All of these little things tell you different things about it. The 45 cast on the main frame was new. The two rivets in the handles is new. The rods no longer screw into the main frame. On the handle or the tote, this has been eliminated. This used to come out like this in a little bit of a horn, and similar to this. And that's been eliminated, and now this just carries on straight down. So another good sign that it's a 7B. The S cast and the V casting makes sense, and the trademark on the rear end here of the main body is Stanley. I don't know if I can get you to be able to see it in the video, but it says. And that changed earlier and forward from this time period. All good signs. Now, there was some strange things. Number one is this was included and being used as one of the screws, which it is not. I'll have to figure out what this goes to. I won't throw it away, but it's, I don't believe, to this 45. So it's missing a few little pieces that I'm going to have to deal with. And but for now, I'm going to clean it up and set it up on the shelf. Trying to see if there's anything else that I missed. Yeah, this little bead here on the bottom of the knob has returned for this time period. And that's about it. The funny thing is that this cam, which is designed to rotate down when you want to, if you're, say, doing a crown molding or something and you've taken away some wood and you can no longer support it, this will go on the rod, and you can just pivot it down to ride on whatever work surface you want. But the earliest one, this is the year that they introduced this, but the one in the drawing of the book has a thumb screw up here going down this way in order to attach it. And this does not. This has a rod, which you can see here, and it just, of course, will go back and clear. And then when you tighten this down, that rod will come out and tighten to one of your cross rods. All good stuff, but distinctive to the 7B, which again is 1896 to 1906. And the B castings are 1897 to 1900, and the S castings are 1901 to 1906. So I'm going to pretty much figure that this has to be a 1901 variable 1902, where they're using an older part with the newer part. So great. It has a little bit of minor rust, but nothing terrible. A little wire brushing will take this off. This is nice and clean. I'll just hand rub a little bit there and clean it up, and I think it's going to serve me well. Over here is the depth stop. It's missing the slitter that would have gone there. That's not an issue. And I think it's the first year these were introduced, the depth stop on the inside.